This is false advertising. Like,
coolest things in my business have happened.
oh my gosh.
That was insane. I stopped shopping at all the places that I could figure out were connected with that disaster. I really need to capitalize on this.
Hey guys, it's Natalia and welcome back to Unfiltered Fashion Talks. Today we have Lela Orr with us. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to talk to you today. So let's just start with like a quick little intro of yourself, kind of just like a quick little rundown.
Okay, so hi, I'm a fashion designer like yourself. My name's Lela Orr. I am from the South. I'm from Texas and also Louisiana. And I create zero waste, more mindfully made fashion through my brand Farah. And I've been doing this for about 5 years now. And before that, I thought I was going to go to law school. So, paths change in life. And yeah, I just want to spread the message about creating more mindfully and sustainably. I've been doing it for years now, and even went on Project Runway and talked about it. And that's me.
Yeah, I love that. This is so funny that you like wanted to go into law school. Like that's such a complete like 180.
Yeah.
What was that kind of transition like? Or like when did you have like a defining moment of like I'd rather actually do fashion instead?
Oh my God. Well, I kind of always knew I wanted to do it. It's one of those things where it's like, you have your passions, but then sometimes in life, when I was told this and with all my friends, like you have your passions, but those are like your projects, you're like your side, do it at home in your own time. And then you have your career. And I think, we're from two different, I guess like generations, I guess, like I'm a millennial. And so, I told my parents from the time that I was like 5, like, I want to be a fashion designer. And they were like, that's great. And they were so supportive. But then whenever it came time to apply to colleges, and I said, I really want to go to Parsons. I knew when I was like 17, I was like, I want to go to Parsons. They told me like, well, that's great. We love that. But you need to go to a 4-year liberal arts or like some kind of serious university, which Parsons actually is a liberal arts school. But they didn't think that. That's not, I guess it's not perceived by many to be that way. And I, and pursue a serious passion. If you still want to do it when you're older, you're really young, you don't know what you want yet. We know best. And they're from the generation where it's like you go to college.
Yeah.
Go to a 4-year university. And so that's what I did. So I did that and I loved Tulane. I mean, I loved going to the school that I went to, and the degree that I got was amazing, and everything works out for a reason.
Right.
So yeah, I studied business, but my passion was like the more creative side of the business degree, which was B law, so business law. And it was a lot of writing, which I love creative writing. I love persuasive writing. So that was just like my cup of tea. So I thought, that's actually kind of feels really creative, and it feels like the most creative outlet for me within the business school. So I studied business law, and I also studied business entrepreneurship because I thought, what, no matter what, I think I do want to do my own thing one day. So I have a degree in entrepreneurship as well. So that really did benefit me in the long run. But eventually I got to it once I was like 22, fresh out of school. I was like, okay, I can go now. Can I go to Parsons? So I did pursue it. I worked for a year and saved up a little bit extra. And then I went to pursue the fashion degree.
Gotcha. That's so crazy. I mean, obviously, like, yeah, I feel like that degree definitely helped you at the beginning anyway. If you ended up obviously having your own business, I'm sure it's super helpful to have that background knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, for a little window of time, I thought, hey, like being a lawyer, it's a tough job. I can handle the stress. And being an entrepreneur is a tough job. So I was like, I can handle the stress. I like this, but I think at the end of the day, it's like, I still was I had an internship with the public defender, but then I also had an internship with this group of artists, and I enjoyed that one so much more. I mean, I enjoyed them both, but like, gosh, the public defender was eye-opening and scarring. And the artists were also kind of the same way, but I was like, okay, this is my passion, and I need to pursue it.
Yeah, no, I love that. So what was your experience at Parsons like?
Oh my gosh. So Parsons was like my dream school. I
Mhm.
applied to FIT as well. So like no shade, no hate to FIT. I think it's a
Yeah,
great
I
school.
applied to Parsons too. So
Yeah. So there
yeah.
you go. So no, I mean, I love FIT, but like I actually was too late in the application process and they actually wanted to see more sewing.
Yeah.
And the most sewing that I had done was like just deconstructing things and putting things together or
Mhm.
like upside, like, we didn't even call it upcycling. My mom was just called it like being a hippie mom and like, hey, I grew up really poor and this is what you have to do is like, we wear your jeans until they're bare in the butt cheeks and then you can, and then
Mhm.
you patch them.
Right.
So I grew up with a mom who was like very much like, yeah, like grew up with nothing. So she instilled that in me, like you wear your things until they're worn out and then you mend them. So I had upcycled things, but I hadn't just made something from scratch. And also I did a lot of hand sewing. I think like the most complicated things on the machine, I made were like just like a square pillow growing up.
Mhm.
So yeah, FIT, it kind of phased me out. I felt like for FIT and I was also late. So Parsons was just like the dream from the time that I was really little. And then I think it was also, it kind of stems from being a big fan of Project Runway. And you know, like they
Yep.
called it Parsons
Yep.
back in the day. So yeah, like I remember in middle school watching Project Runway and my dad saying like, what would you design for this challenge? And like getting out a pen and paper and sketching up something and thinking that was just like so much fun, like for like these
Mhm.
unconventional challenges, making stuff out of like the weirdest stuff from your backyard or whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah, so Parsons was kind of the dream. So I got into Parsons, I loved it, but and I think I just mentioned this recently, I made a video on this. I was never at the top of my class. It was really competitive. And also like my aesthetic, and I mean, I think I was very much still learning what my aesthetic was.
Mhm.
I was also very obsessed with fashion history, like grew up with a very fashionable grandmother. So all of my fashion pieces were all references. And so it was really hard for me to establish a footing and find my voice while I was in school. And I think that that kind of held me back a little bit in a way. It was just like maybe, I mean, I just jumped into it and I felt like there was other students who had been sewing for years who had their complete aesthetic figured out.
Mhm.
Also like Alexander Wang and like a very like gender neutral, all black and white aesthetic was like the very
Mhm.
hot thing. And I've never really like loved making things in black. I don't know why. It's just like the color never, it doesn't really speak to me that often. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. And everything was like very dark. And I just didn't, I wasn't vibing with that. And my stuff got looked over a lot. So I liked it. I thought that it really pushed me
Mhm.
out of my comfort zone because it really humbles you when you grow up in a smaller town and you do like, I'm also an only child. So like the littlest thing I would do was like the most amazing thing in the world. And then you get to Parsons and you're around and you're in New York City and you're interning for the best and you're around the best, most creative people. And you're like, wow, I'm really, really not that special, but like
Mhm.
that's all, it's humbling. And you know, I think it also taught me to not compare myself to others so much because you're never going to be the best whatever they're doing. You can only be the best whatever you're doing, and you need to really look inward and keep your head down so you're focused on what your process is, and that way you can really truly grow and really create something special and be special and seen amongst the crowd because you're focused inward on your own aesthetic and what you're doing. Sorry, that
Yeah.
was very long-winded.
Oh no, I think look, I relate to so many parts of that. I also learned about Parsons through Project Runway. Like I grew up
Yeah,
watching it as well, and I was like, oh my God, that is my dream school. And it was like my number
yeah,
one for so long, but I ended up going to FIT kind of for
yeah.
the opposite reason because I was more sewing based than art based. So
Mhm,
FIT like fit me a little bit better. But that's just so funny because you ended up
mhm.
going on Project Runway, which is so cool.
I know.
But your
Weird.
season wasn't at Parsons, right?
No, so it's actually so crazy. So that workroom space that they filmed
Mhm.
for years was in a building that was in the garment district. And I got the
Oh.
experience of I actually got to go to the original Parsons for 1 year. I think,
Mhm.
yeah, it was a full year. And then by year two, we were in that cool new building that's on
Yeah.
Fifth Avenue. And so that was the other half of my degree was at the new building. So I actually got a little bit of both. So I did get to like see the iconic like stage that they
Mhm.
filmed, like and then the theater and like, wherever they filmed. But yeah, so I got
Yeah.
both, but it was
That's so
cool.
cool.
Good
That's
time.
so cool. Yeah, because when I toured Parsons, it was I guess later on and they didn't have that anymore. And I was so disappointed when I like had the tour and it wasn't like Project Runway. I was like, this is false advertising. Like,
I
what the
know.
heck?
One of the buildings got demolished, so part like the original Parsons is gone. Something else is
Yeah,
there. New York
sad.
for you. Mhm.
I know, it happens. But I think you also bring up a lot of great points of like you weren't like number one in your class. Like I felt the exact same way. I felt like everybody was like that super gender neutral, cool aesthetic. Because I
Mhm.
feel like that's still very relevant right now too.
Mhm.
Um, and it just like was not me whatsoever. And it is quite humbling to kind of go to a big city. Cause like also I grew up in Indiana. So I was like the only fashion person here. So everybody thought anything I did was like the coolest thing ever. They're like, oh my God, you can sew. That's so freaking cool. And I'm like, yeah. And then I get there and I'm like, never mind.
Yeah, not that cool.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not the coolest, but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I swear, I think like I have this like I feel like sometimes I mean it's not good to compare yourself to Kanye West because like he is a whole list of problems, but
Mhm.
I mean also iconic in like a really problematic way,
Yes.
but like yeah, but I feel like I'm like even in my hometown though, people had this idea of me that was like nothing to do with fashion designer at all. I really kept a lot of that
Mhm.
stuff like at home and like inside, like I bottled that up. So even my college, like my undergrad friends were like, what, you're going to fashion school? Like that's so weird. And like a lot of my friends, like good close friends, asked me like, oh my God, you're going to fashion school, can you hem my jeans? And I was just like I didn't really get the
Mm-mm.
support from my friends back home in college, and I hope that they see this because like you know what, you guys,
Yeah. Yep.
but yeah, I mean, that's what I just had this like crazy, weird, like, I'm just gonna be a designer. Like I got this, like I'm gonna be so good. I'm gonna have a brand. And still to this day, like I find support from strangers and like new friends and people that know me as this version of myself. Because people from your past, I find like, especially if you pursue your dreams a little bit later in life and you keep things to yourself, people have an idea of you that is their idea of you. It's completely independent to them.
Mhm.
And when you break that mold and you're evolving and changing, it's so cool and it's so fulfilling. But a lot of people just can't comprehend that. And if they don't follow you on your journey, like it's not because they don't like you or they hate you or they have some vendetta against you, that you're just not fitting that mold of who that you are in their head. And that's okay, because I don't need to
Mhm.
please them. I don't need to be that for them. So that was the other thing. But yeah, anyway, moving on.
Yeah, no, that's so true because I felt that too because I ended up having to move back to Indiana during the pandemic. And so like coming back post college, I'm like a completely different person than what I was over here. And like trying to reconnect with friends here has been really weird and difficult because it's just like we are two separate people at this point, like not
Yeah.
the same. And not in a bad way, but it's just like, yeah, it's completely different worlds.
Yeah, people change. And then I have friends that are my best friend. I could finally convinced her to get on TikTok. I'm like, get freaking TikTok, because none of my friends are on TikTok commenting like, this is awesome. So I don't have like
Mhm.
any, engagement from them. I was like, get your butt on TikTok. And she's like, okay, fine. And she's been my friend since I was 6, and we are completely different people, but
Mhm.
we grew back together. It's so you never know. People will
Yeah.
surprise you in a good way too.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And that's so funny. Honestly, even my friends aren't really on TikTok commenting on my stuff either, even though
Yeah,
like I'm Gen Z and they should be on TikTok
I
commenting on stuff. Like
know.
I don't even get that sometimes.
Supporting.
I
Hello.
know. But it's fine. I get so much support from random strangers on the internet too, which is really
I
great.
know. Yeah, and you make TikTok friends. It's so cool. I love
Yeah, it's so
it.
fun. So fun. So, okay, let's talk about like your brand and stuff. How did you like start it? What's the idea behind it? Also like the name, where did that come from?
Yeah. Okay. So it's so crazy. My brand kind of evolved by accident. And I'm very much a planner. So this is not how I do things, but it just kind of happened this way. And this is how some of the most like the coolest things in my business have happened. So I started Farah as an extension of a portfolio project I did in school. So for me, it was just like, again, like my aesthetic wasn't really vibing with a lot of people. I'm very into the 70s and like Studio 54 vibes.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's not really, it's a little bit in my brand today? A little bit, but not really. But at the time I just was like exploring and having fun. And I was in the heart of New York City. And I loved the idea of Studio 54 back in the 70s, a very different version of New York. And so I did a version of that, and also tying into my Texas roots with like the fringe and sparkles and the glam ladies of Dallas. So I made this collection, and I was like, but it's interesting though, I didn't throw anything out. So I was like, I want to show people that you can be high end, but not throw anything out. And I even sourced scraps of like complete, like tiny pieces of leather, which I don't work with leather anymore, but it was all like the tiniest remnant pieces from garbage bins at Parsons. And other places like at Global Leathers in New York, they have a scrap pile that's like super discounted. As a student, that was easy for me to afford and access. And I also felt like I was saving some scrap. So I made things out of scrap. I made things out of trash, and it looked really awesome. I like to pat myself on the back. It was like a really cool collection. It was like shiny and fun and had a lot of energy, and it felt luxury. So I wanted to show people you can be high end, but you can also not throw anything out and be, I didn't know at the time, I didn't use the term zero waste. I just said, yeah, I'm making high end and I'm not throwing anything away. I'm putting it all into the collection or repurposing it in some way. Zero waste is a much more condensed version of saying that now that I know. But yeah, at the time, no one was talking about that. So this was back in 2015. So I feel like I was pretty early in that movement of the zero waste movement. And I just, after hearing about the Rana Plaza disaster when I was in school, for me, I was like, there's no turning back. Like I stopped shopping at all the places that I could figure out were connected with that disaster, that were manufacturing in that factory. Stopped shopping there, completely changed how my outlook on fashion. So that was what that collection was for. And that's kind of how my brand was born. So it wasn't even supposed to be called Farrah. I just named the collection Farrah. And then people started running with it. They're like, oh, Farrah at Dallas Fashion Week, Farrah at Fashion by Austin and Houston. And I was like, because I did like a whole cycle with fashion shows in Dallas. So I was like, well, I have this portfolio. Where can I show it? I can't afford New York Fashion Week, but my parents live in Dallas. So let me go back to Texas and show it there, because I can actually afford this fashion week, and I'll get it in front of fashionable people. I know Dallas likes high fashion. And I can get photos of my work, and that'll be that. So it turned into a brand from that. I had orders, not that many, but enough to pay for myself back for the materials, which was really cool. So I in a way, it was kind of like a break even situation, which was really inspiring to me. And from what I learned in business, like that's a very good sign. But another thing that I learned from my undergrad degree in business was that like I was an early mover. I could already see, I studied trend forecasting as well as fashion design. So I could already see where the trends were going and what I wanted to do and how it really aligned with my passions. And I saw, okay, there's a lot of potential here, because if you're an early mover in an industry like fashion that is so heavily reliant on trends and where trends are going, but you see something as a long-term trend. And for me, it's not just a trend. It's like, it needs to be like the way that fashion is going, and it's turning into very much more of that. So I thought, I'm early here. I really need to capitalize on this. And I'm very passionate about it too. So people will actually, maybe they'll listen, because I care enough to totally overhaul my entire viewpoint of the fashion industry. And I'm like a broke grad student, and I'm not shopping at all at Zara or H&M or Forever 21 anymore. So maybe people will listen, and they did. And it just evolved from there. It was a very, very slow evolution, because I'm extremely introverted. Even before the pandemic, I like never really wanted to go out and like talk about my brand. I don't like being a salesperson, pitchy, salesy, but you kind of have to. I also even I stuck with the Farrah name because, well, Farrah, one, means joy in Arabic. And I think that's really important, that there's joy in fashion, like whatever you do, creating clothes that bring people joy, I think is so important. And that's my goal. And so I stuck with that. But that, I don't know. I felt like I don't even know where I was going with that. I just kind of like on tangent. Anyway, so yeah, it was a slow start, but I eventually did a fashion show and I met my business partner, and she is so much more social than me and like dragged me out to events, and we started shaking hands and meeting cool people in Dallas. And Dallas is a really cool fashion hub. There's a lot of really fashionable people here. We joined FGI. I put myself out there. I applied. Well, my friend submitted me for Project Runway. And then that just really helped me grow the brand to what it is today. Maybe being on national television does not hurt.
Right.
And then TikTok has been very transformative too. And it's cool too, because I feel like people from TikTok are like, wait, weren't you on that show? I'm like, oh, I should just find me from that show. You found me completely independently of that. And that's very cool too. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's funny because I like refound you through that because I watched every season of Project Runway. Like it was one of my favorite shows growing up. So like I definitely watched your season, but like I am really bad about actively following designers after watching Project Runway. But then they'll randomly pop up on my social medias. I'm like, oh my God, I remember you. And then I'll follow. And you popped up on my TikTok. I'm like, why does she look so familiar to me? I'm like, have I seen you before? And then I was like, oh my God.
Different. But
yeah. But I was like, oh my God, Project Runway, that's what it is. But yeah, no, I think it's cool because you definitely were very early into the zero waste kind of movement. Like I think zero waste was starting a lot more in the lifestyle section of things around 2015, 2016. But in terms of fashion, I feel like over the past like 2-3 years, it's been a little bit more recent. So the fact that you started it before it was even like trendy or like a thing is really cool, because even for me, I kind of started getting into it in 2019, 2020, which is still like relatively recent for me. So it's cool to see that you've been doing it for so much longer, and like it's been a passion for before it was like a big thing. And you like spoke about it on Project Runway, and I feel like you're the first person to ever like say anything about sustainability on Project Runway.
Yeah, well, okay, actually I wasn't, but I was the first person to not be labeled as insane for doing it.
Okay, yes, true.
Yeah, because there was a guy who I don't remember his name. Again, like I suck, like I'm really bad at my follow through of following the designers after the show as well.
Yeah.
But there was a guy who was like, I think it was like maybe in 2013 or 14, like he was early, this dude. And he went to the scrap pile at Mood and only used scraps, but I didn't do it because I knew the time that they gave me, like I could not just piece a bunch of scraps together and sew it well. Which I do it all the time at home, but like within 10 hours, there's no way.
No.
So I think he was just a little too ambitious, but he talked about it and I was like, this guy is onto something, but yeah, they labeled him as crazy. And so I was a little bit worried about that too, but I was so confident in it. And there was a clip of me asking designers like on a team challenge, because I asked them, I was like, can we just be really mindful about the textiles that we get? I don't use leather. And they were like, we won't use leather. We'll be respectful of that. But I remember there was a clip and I was like, I hope I'm not coming off as like too much. Like, I don't want to force my agenda on you. Like, it's just how I work. And I just want to let you guys know that's how I work. I don't want to slow anyone down, but zero waste patterning is like patterning like a puzzle. So it does take more time. And so I just was trying to explain that. And the clip got me talking to them and saying like, I hope it's not too much. And they were like, no, like you do it with class. It's not pushy. Like you're so cool. And like this, like, and they were like, no, you've inspired us. Like, which was really cool. So I had a very good edit from that show, thank goodness. But I was also just really nice to everybody in production and behind the scenes. So they usually don't want to like, I think being kind to people goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
It was just how I was, but I asked some favors down the road and they came through because I was nice to them. So I think that was fine.
That's like, so good.
Don't show my toe poking through my sock because I was running around the work poking out. I tell everyone that story. So I definitely give myself away, but they were like, no, we got you, girl. Like, we won't do that. And I was like, thank you. Cause it's like, would probably be very good TV. It's really funny. And they're like, yeah, I would, but no, we got you.
That is so funny.
Yeah. So, yeah. Doing me a little bit of favors, and the camera crew was kind of nice.
Good. No, that's so good. Because I feel like obviously, yeah, any sort of TV show is always going to try to bring out the drama in people. And I'm sure it's not actually like that 100% in real life,
I mean, but you saw my season, like my season 17 of Project Runway was not very dramatic.
It really wasn't. I don't recall like anything crazy.
Which is also on the other side of the coin. Like it was great for my mental health and, I think everyone else's, but it doesn't make as good of TV. I think that we had the lowest ratings. So.
Well, I remember it very well.
Oh, good. I mean, I remember it was crazy. Like that Woods episode when we were doing the unconventional stuff in the woods.
Oh my gosh.
That was insane.
Yeah.
Literally the reason why I worked with the glue guns. I also don't work a lot with glue guns. I sew everything. I chose a glue gun because my hands were so dang cold. So I was like, I need something warm to hold on to. So it's like literally my design was reflected in how cold I was. So
I mean, that makes perfect sense. That was a crazy challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That one's a wild one. What was your favorite challenge that you did?
Probably the elegance challenge because I was also on top, but
yeah.
but it's also like, I just wish I could have stayed because the cause challenge would have been my favorite challenge by far. I would have done something about like the world's oceans and all of the microplastics in the ocean, but like easy. Like when they were like, what would you have done? I was like, oh, I'm done. But I didn't make it that far, unfortunately. There's a lot of challenges that happened after and actually not a lot. I made it on 9 episodes out of like 12 or something like that, which was really cool. But the challenges that happened after, I was like, ooh, that's really like the real woman challenge. Like I designed for real women all the time, which also like, I don't like the term that they used, real woman, because I know real women too. And we had models of all different sizes. I think that they're just like women outside of the fashion industry, which I guess is not like a catchy way to say that, but I didn't like that term. And I probably would have said it on TV, which would have maybe made good TV too. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so I think my favorite that I was on was the elegance challenge because I really went to a place that was very personal to me on that challenge. They edited a lot of things out and they didn't put like a lot of things that I said about that challenge in there. But yeah, that challenge felt really personal and I really poured my heart into that piece. And so I didn't win. Jamal is amazing. And so is Benny. So I mean, like the win was deserved, I'm a gracious loser, but, but I also like, I didn't talk on stage about some of the things I said, in the privacy of those one-on-one interviews, which they're like, okay, moving on,
right.
So there's that too. But yeah, that challenge was that was something.
Yeah, no, everything was beautiful. That was just a great season. There were some really cool designers in that.
My other favorite challenge was the print challenge. And that design didn't really read well on camera because I'm not the biggest like print girl. So I picked like a camo that was very like muddy and muted, which I thought was really cool. But that design, I still love that design that I did. And my model, that was really inspiring because my model actually served as the muse and the inspiration behind the design. And they didn't show that either. But Natalia was she was the coolest. And she passed away, unfortunately, of bone cancer.
Oh my gosh.
But we talked on the show, there's so many amazing moments that don't get shown on the show, but we talked about how the odds of her surviving the type of cancer that she first had were like the odds of being struck by lightning twice.
Wow.
So it was a very rare form, very low survival rate, and she survived. And she had this scar on her leg, and I had a slit in the skirt. And I was like, I can make it higher or lower if you want me to cover it. And she was like, no, I'm so proud. And she's like, I love that you called this look like a warrior look, because that's what my mom calls me, is like, I'm her warrior woman. And I was like, oh my God, like I was so moved to tears. And so I like raised the slit so she could like show it, and that whole thing happened, but I was on the top, so they don't show the stories for that. But it was very, very inspirational. And so, yeah, I mean, I think inspiration can come from all different places. And I was worried about that within the confines of the time restraint, but you can get inspired by your models, you can get inspired by a challenge and the messaging behind it. You never know. So
yeah, no, that's so beautiful. I love that. I'm so sad they don't share all those stories. I'm sure so many people have so many little tidbits that would add so much to it.
I know. We're not even supposed to talk about it. We're supposed to say like, whatever you saw was exactly what happened.
Right.
But I'm out of my contract now, so I don't really care.
I mean, everybody knows that like there's obviously always more to it than what they show. So it's not like a big secret. Yeah. But touching on like the whole like being creative within the time constraints, that's always been like my biggest fear if I were to ever go on Project Runway, which I don't think I will, but whenever I get I know I haven't. But like,
would you go on Project Runway though? Do you think?
I don't know. I don't think so. I've been asked so many times if I would, but I just feel like I would be the like stressed crier of the show, and I would rather not be portrayed like that.
You never know. My dad told me that I was going to be the girl in the corner by the sewing machine.
Really?
Yeah, so much faith. Thanks, Dad. No, I was kind of joking, but no, for real, because I do get so stressed. You can do it. You could totally do it.
We'll see. We'll see. But I feel like that's one of my biggest.
You on. I hope that you do.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But like my biggest fear is like not coming up with an idea within like the time constraint. Like that sounds so stressful. Like what if you literally can't come up with anything? Like what do you do?
I feel like, okay, this is actually a pro tip for anyone, including you, who might want to go on Project Runway. Just get that out of your mind, because what I did is I even created I had a whole Pinterest file folder, whatever, of Project Runway inspiration. Like I studied it like a psycho. Like I was a huge super fan, and I looked at every single episode and I was like, okay, the odds of this challenge happening are high. So let me study what they did and what the judges liked and what worked and what didn't. Like I was a fiend. I was like obsessed. I don't know if they've ever had a super fan like me on their show, and I kept my cool, but you heard it here. Like I was a fan, super fan. And so I prepped like too much, like it was silly. And I know that it is important to show what you do back home if you have a brand, and to show off your aesthetic. And like Tessa from my season did that very well. Like
she did.
She like also like literally remade her collection whenever she got the chance to. And while she won a challenge, like the first challenge, she just literally remade a look that like she was already making with her collection,
right?
Or like a version of that look. I think that her most inspired pieces, even though some of them weren't on the top, some of them actually were, but were the ones that she was just really inspired by the challenge. So, and for me, the same thing applies. Like that look, like, I'm trying to think, the first look was something that I like prepped and like had an idea about. But then I like lost track of time and then panicked and then had to redo it, and then completely scrapped the original look that I had kind of planned out, thinking like some kind of like, okay, we'll be inspired by the judges maybe for a challenge. And I was right. That was the very first challenge. I was so in my head, and I took away from the creative process, and I was on the bottom of the first challenge. I mean, I was like what we called a soft bottom as our term. The producers love that. Like all of us designers calling it. Yeah. So I was the soft bottom challenge one, but and people still to this day will comment like, I loved your first look, which it was good, but it was also a complete like panic. Like I had a full-blown panic attack meltdown in the bathroom, and then went out there and was like, get yourself together. You can't send her down naked. So I made it. So I would say actually get out of your head and just really try to be in the moment, inspired by the collection or by the challenge prompt or your model or whatever. Like a designer this year said she saw like a top that one of the judges was wearing and got inspired for the next challenge. Like be really in the moment. Cause I think that was like my elegance challenge. It was completely in the moment. And I loved that look. So yeah, so don't fret. If you can sew and your construction skills are there, then I wouldn't worry too much about it.
That's fair. I feel like you wouldn't know unless you're like in that situation, because it's hard to even like fathom what it would be like. But that's so cool. What was like the mood trips like? Like, are they as stressful as it looks on TV, even worse? Like,
oh no,
how is it?
No, there's so much fun. No. Well, also like, I don't know. I just like, I do get very stressed out, but you can't ever see it on my face. So I feel like, and Bishme, do you remember Bishme?
Yes.
Freaking love him. Okay, so Bishme, I would always make sure that I was in the vans with Bishme because it was like a dance party the whole time. Going to move back, like it was just like we like thrived. I mean, we can get into like mood itself, but like on the way to mood and on the way back, like they would be like, all right, like you can listen to the radio. And so we put on the radio. It's like, we were always in the workroom and there's no music because they've got to film you. And so we were just like, it was just a dance party. And like, we were just like, listening to like just stupid, whatever was on the radio. Like it was a lot of Cardi B though, because I think they were
trying to
get
so fun
amped because Cardi B was like the final celebrity judge. So it was just bounce around to Cardi B like all the time. So no, those were so fun. But no, mood itself can be very stressful. I also, though, like I had a leg up because like I went to school in New York. So like I sourced from mood a lot and I knew mood very well. And I also had, again, I think this is like where kindness comes into play. I have friends at mood that like hook it up. So like,
that's good.
Yeah. So like they'd be like, oh, I'd be like, well, I'm looking for this. And then they'd be like, oh, you need to go. Just got this thing in. And I think that would be perfect. So they like, I feel like I had kind of an in. So that definitely helped, but it's still, no matter what, it's 30 minutes to get everything you need is very stressful. And I do sometimes wish, like I always had a backup plan. So I always got backup fabric. I do wish I maybe just more committed, because like with my backup fabric, like I couldn't even make an error because then I go to a completely different textile. But yeah, it's stressful, but fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds stressful, but also fun. I like, when I was also in New York for school, I like had to go to Mood to like buy stuff, and like the day that I was so mad this day because I just like, I had like a certain window of time I could go to Mood between classes, and I get there and they're like, we're filming Project Runway right now, you can't enter the store. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Oh no.
Like I went up the elevator and then we get up there and there's like a whole camera crew and they were like, nope, you got to go back down. And I was like, no.
Oh my gosh. Wait, when was that?
2019.
2019. Is it in the summer?
It would have been the fall, I think.
2019. Or it wasn't 2018?
No, 2018 I was in Italy.
Okay. Then yeah, I guess that was season 19.
Yeah, I guess so. I never like looked back on the years to figure out which one it would be.
Yeah, that was season 18. Oh, I guess they did film into the fall a little bit. Yeah. That was season 18. Yeah, Brittany Allen, she's like on that season.
Yes, yeah. I also am like mutual friends with her on TikTok, which is so like weird to me that I'm like, I watched all of you guys on TV and now we're like mutual friends on TikTok. I'm like, I'm low-key fangirling. Like, this is so funny to me.
Yeah, that's so crazy. It's so full circle. And a lot of people from Project Runway are so nice. I was kind of from that same mindset. I was like, oh my God, you're a celebrity. Like, this is so crazy.
Right.
And now that I'm very much like in that world, I'm like, oh, like, but I've had some people not be very nice from like old Lifetime seasons. And I'm like, went back when it was like really dramatic and really catty.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, well, you don't have to like me, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
no loss.
I just feel like there is a different spirit with Bravo, the new iteration. And also seeing season 19, the most recent one, it was, I thought they were a lot nicer. Everyone's been really nice.
Yeah.
There was some but they genuinely all really like each other. We feel that same way about my season. I mean, I can speak for myself. I genuinely really like everybody.
Yeah, no, I feel like you can sense that. Like the vibes are definitely a lot more nice and like community centered.
We're all doing the same thing. We're all
exactly
like trying to make it in a really saturated, really competitive, difficult industry, and we all have to be on the same show at the same time. Like that is just so crazy, and you might as well make the most of it. It's just such a cool. I definitely highly encourage it if anyone's thinking about Project Runway in the future. Highly encourage.
We'll see. We'll think about it. But how has Project Runway helped like your brand and like kind of exposure for you? Like, was it like a lot at once right after, or not so much?
So like for me, going to Parsons too and talking to other designers, like you said, like you get asked a lot, like, would you ever do Project Runway? Because people think of that as a fashion show. I mean, there's a lot of other fashion shows out now. Not a lot. There's a couple that I can think of. But I was always of the mindset that like, I feel like it has the ability to possibly cheapen your brand, not because the show's not wonderful. I think the show's wonderful, but it also shows a designer what you can do within like 10 or 12 hours, like one day, which is not going to be like a couture unless you're like freaking like Sebastian.
Oh my God. He was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and that's the thing, is like he's incredible, but he's also incredible because he's fast, because he made some looks that were flops, but then he could go back and edit himself because he's so fast.
Exactly.
So, because I have that ability too, I think I could really crank out some really stellar things. But for me, 10 hours is like what I need to make a dress that's like, all right.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Unless I'm just like on one and I'm like crazy and I'm whatever, I can crank it out even faster sometimes, but that's rare. And for him, that's the norm. And so I think that was the worry for me, is like, it could cheapen my brand or my business when people see me have a flaw on the show. And that's what I always thought. I was like, why would a designer do this if you have a business? Because if you go in, you're risking your reputation, because one, you could control it to a certain extent, because like you can make flops or you can make amazing pieces. But then there's also the personality factor of how they're going to build your character and how they're going to package that character for the general public to digest.
Right.
And that's a risk that actually you really can't control. You can be yourself. And I feel like I have enough self-awareness to know when I'm being an asshole and when I'm being cool or not so cool or awkward or insecure or whatever. I feel like I'm in my head a lot as an introverted person, but some people they lack a lot of self-awareness, and then they see it back on TV. And that's the part that you can't control. And it's the part that you don't expect to be so nervous about. But for me, even me, like who I didn't think that I ruffled too many feathers and was generally, kind of coasted through, did okay on the show, made it far enough to be proud of. You don't know, one, how far you're going to get. And that could be embarrassing to maybe some people who they don't care if they make it an episode or two. It's what gets good exposure, whatever. But to me as a super fan, I was like, I cannot not make it to like past episode 5. Like I have got to get past that, like, because I love this show so much, so, and then also I was so nervous for months until it aired. How am I going to be perceived? Like, what are people going to think? And I used to care so much about what people thought of me. And, I could care less now. I don't care at all. I really don't. Like, I think it's easy to say that because I wasn't getting death threats, and some people are getting death threats. And I just don't understand like what makes a person wake up in the morning and decide to send someone a death threat where they actually fear for their life and they have to like change their email address or their phone number. Like that's just so incredibly like heartbreaking that we as a society, people have gotten to that point. But yeah, I like someone said something like they're like, no offense to you, but like I hate this look that you made the other day on TikTok. And I was like, I did spend like 40 hours making, it was like that tiny scrap dress where I had to sew all those tiny scraps together and make a dress out of all my scraps. And like so proud of that. I freaking love that design. Yeah. This person it wasn't for them. And they were like, I hate it. And I commented back and I was like, hey, no worries. Like you can hate it. Like, words, it is okay. Like I will come out. And they were like, oh, like you responded like, no hate, no shade. And I was like, I mean, you could just scroll past. And literally that would have been better. But actually maybe you wouldn't have, because it's the algorithm, whatever. But you left a comment and you felt that compelled to tell me you hate something so much. It's okay. And so I've gotten worse from people. I've gotten really offensive messages from men, mostly like old white men. That's the demographic that's the meanest to me. And I just am like, you're a hurt person and you're just spewing that hate that you probably have got in the world. And I let that stuff bounce off of me now that I'm older. I definitely took it to heart when I was a lot younger. Even up until maybe like a couple of years ago, I took that to heart, and those comments stick with you. They really do. Yeah. But now I couldn't tell you, like things that I've gotten in the past, like couple months, I couldn't tell you what people have said. I just kind of am like, delete, scroll. It doesn't affect me. So if you don't give people the power to impact what you're doing, because like you are doing something, and specifically you, but also people that are going to watch this, like chances are, like if you're here watching this video and like and with what you do, like you are into making this world a better place and doing it through the vehicle of fashion or whatever industry you're in. And that you're creating a bright spot in this world and you're sharing a positive message. And this platform that you've created is just so wonderful. So I hope that, because I know you are younger than me and I'm not trying to be preachy, but like I do hope that you really don't take those things to heart, because you are doing so many wonderful things. And I do hope in general that like we as like women too, like cannot like just not harp on those negative comments, because they have the power to stay with you. And just to not let people have that power, because you're doing amazing things. So.
Yeah, no, I think I used to also like obviously take it to heart when I was younger. But I feel like over the past like year, I've gotten to a point where I'm like, I really don't care. Like, I'm not losing customers over this, because if they didn't like it, they were never going to be a customer anyway. So it's like, whatever. And also, a lot of the times, if you do respond to them kind of in like that nice way of like, hey, it's okay, or like whatever, then they'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, didn't think you were going to say anything. I'm like, you realize there's like a person behind this account. Like, I'm not some robot. Like, of course I'm going to see it. Like, it's crazy.
I think it's like, oh, it's not that personal.
Right.
And like when you have a bigger platform, or when you're on TV, you become like a character of yourself. And that's not the reality of the situation. You are a human being behind that screen. So
exactly.
I hope more people, I don't know, it doesn't seem like things are any different.
No.
I mean, I have hope that we as a society can just, for the most part, push that stuff away. But yeah, there's always trolls no matter what. I am the eternal optimist though, even though I feel like sometimes people could think that I'm pessimistic. I'm like, no, I am the eternal optimist. I'm like, we can get better, guys. We can do better. But yeah.
No, I'm right there with you. I think we can do better. And I feel like to an extent it's kind of gotten better. I don't know. I feel like it goes in waves, but it's fine.
In the meantime, all you can do is you can control yourself. And that's why I always like try to leave like as many nice comments. And even if someone's like, what do you think? And I like know them, I'm like, even if I don't love it, I'll leave a constructive comment, you know? Like,
exactly.
Like, I kind of hate it. Bye.
Like, this is awful. Actually, I hate it.
Peace. No. Like, I oh, cool. Like I maybe would have like raised the hem instead of doing this. Like, but like that's an interesting way to look at things. And that's why they did not like me on Project Runway, because they're like, well, what's your critique of this designer's look? And I was like, I mean, I wouldn't personally wear it, but I feel like there's definitely a customer for that. And like,
exactly.
So you can say like other designers said like, it was insane, looked like a clown. And I was like, well, hey, clown. I mean, as someone who like looks at trends, like clown couture is like, that's kind of a coming in style. They're like, all right, Lela, bye, thanks.
Yeah. No, that would be me too. I'd be like, well, like there's definitely somebody out there who would wear it. Like, it's not my personal style, but it could be someone else's. Like, who am I to say? Like, it's subjective. Yeah.
This industry is tough, man. Like,
it
you
is.
gotta get support from somewhere,
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'm like, you guys knew what you were gonna get with me. Like, I extensively. Like, you knew I wasn't gonna like throw shade to people. I'm just not a person. But I mean, I can be. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, we all have that. Yeah, but
definitely can. But no, I mean, for the most part, I felt like I was like solidarity. Like, together, us designers. There's only 16 of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. Switching subjects a little bit, what are like your future goals with your brand and like things you want to do? Are you in like a good place with it where like you don't have any crazy big goals and you're kind of just like continuing things, or is there anything else you still want to do?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely switching gears in the vision that I had for my brand. And I've been writing a lot lately of where I'd like to see it go from where I started and what's in my business plan. Because the initial business plan actually has changed quite a lot. In a way, like the founding principles and the goals haven't changed of like who we are as a company, which is, zero waste and working with natural textiles, and every single year adding something new that ups our sustainability factor, because no one is 100% sustainable, but we can all work towards being better. And so I try to do that by doing something new every year. But in a way, I used to think like I wanted my brand to be like on the like New York Fashion Week calendar. I wanted to have collection after collection. And I just, the more that I've learned being in the sustainable industry, and also like the more that I've learned from people like yourself, like on TikTok, like, like it's actually, that's not sustainable. I mean, also like sustainability and profitability aren't necessarily synced. And I hope that the fashion calendar also changes where we're producing or making less collections, because that also just kind of perpetuates the like buy more, always change your style, buy to keep up with the trends, which is just really toxic.
Mhm.
And so I actually don't want to be a part of the fashion calendar. I don't want to be at New York Fashion Week. If I did do a fashion week, I'd probably go either to Mexico or to Europe.
Mhm.
Because they do have really amazing fashion weeks there. And so I was kind of always working towards that, and I don't want to work towards that anymore.
Mhm.
I actually also really want to focus in on like the made to order elements of my brand. That's how I can do size inclusivity, is offer
Right.
custom. And then really also leaning into like the pre-order. So kind of going the route where it's a little bit more accessible through like some ready to wear collections that are available for pre-order. And then also really leaning into the bridal side of things, because I really enjoy making bridal looks for my custom brides. And I
Mhm.
find that that's kind of the customer that really, it gets the most excited, like as excited as I get to make every single piece. Brides are
Yeah.
just as excited for their piece. So I really am leaning into bridal. I get so inspired by creating new kinds of bridal. And I do see that the bridal industry really does need an overhaul, not in just like the sustainability, but how brides are treated and how things,
Yeah.
how that flows. And I just think it's lacking in transparency and ethics and goodwill and
Mhm.
sustainability. And there's just so much polyester that's out there, and it's
Yeah.
not one for synthetics. So yeah, so that's what I'm kind of leaning into right now. So maybe eventually in a broad fashion week.
Mhm.
And it could be a bridal week, but I do really love my ready to wear collections, but also creating, a collection a year, and then maybe, doing some like pre-orders within that collection that I designed throughout the year.
Mhm.
But just not just creating mindfully, listening to my customers, not going too far with it, and growing the brand that way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that I've kind of had this similar realization with like the amount of collections I put out and kind of trying to not follow the calendar. And it's so hard when you like, obviously, like you also like have a bunch of ideas all the time and you have all these things you want to make all the time, or like, I don't know, new things pop up and I'm like, oh, I want to make that, like make a collection out of that. But I'm like, take it back. Like you're trying to get away from the overconsumption and like throwing all these things at people, like, take it slow, like it's okay. But
No.
it's hard to change that mindset.
It's tough. It's also tough. I don't know if this has happened to you, because I feel like
Mhm.
you've been so like mindful about the things that you're producing. Like I love your
Mhm.
new collection that just dropped. You've been
Thank
promoting that. It's
you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
And how you sell it, and how it just doesn't come off as, it just feels very authentic and natural.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's what a lot of brands can't seem to nail down, and you do it
Right.
very well. So
Thank
kudos to you. But
you.
I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but this happened to me recently, is like you put a prototype out there
Mhm.
and you just want to test the market, because TikTok is a really great place to just use
Mhm.
it as like a testing ground. And then it blows up, and then everyone's like, okay, when can I want to buy right now. And so you're
Yep.
meeting demand, but you're like also trying to like be mindful in the creation. So that's hard for me. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now, because it just happened. But like, all right,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that gets really hard when you're like want to kind of scale it in a sense because you want to be able to, make stuff for more people, but at the same time it's like, wait a minute, at what point does it become unsustainable, like production wise? And I don't know, I'm trying to figure that out too, because like I want to make more, but also I'm like, I don't want to overproduce,
Yeah.
but I also want to be able to like cater to a little bit more people than what I am right now. And it's, I don't know, it's a little hard to navigate, but
Tough. We'll figure it out.
yeah, but we'll
Learn
get
as you
there.
go.
Yeah, we're doing our best and that's all that matters.
That's right. We'll figure out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's tough, but I'm figuring it out as I go too. No matter,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in this business for a while and I'm still learning. So
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, I don't think we'll ever stop learning about it. I feel like sustainability is so like new and it just continues to, grow and evolve. And there's always something new to learn. So,
oh yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for coming on today. So fun talking.
So happy to be here. It's been really great. But yes, I have a lot of questions for you, but
Oh my
I
gosh.
can ask them off air.
Yeah, we will talk about this afterwards. But let us know where people can find you, shout yourself out.
Yeah, so I am Lela Orr. We've talked most about TikTok, I feel like. So I'm Lela
Mhm.
Orr on TikTok, and you can find me on Instagram as well. I have a brand account and a personal account. The personal is Lela Christiana, and my brand is Farah. It's Farah Official on Instagram. Farah.co is my website where you can shop and check out our lookbooks and learn more about our sustainability practices and things like that.
Perfect. Well, go check her out if you haven't. I will have it all linked down below in the description, show notes, all the things. And we will see you guys in the next one. Bye.